You are listening to It Ends With Us, authored by Colleen Hoover and narrated to you by Audiobooks with Lost Stories. Please subscribe to this channel for more such audiobooks. Thank you. Chapter 25. I smell toast. I stretch out on my bed and smile because Ryle knows toast is my favorite. My eyes flick open and the clarity smashes down on me with the force of a head-on collision. I squeeze my eyes shut when I realize where I am and why I am here, and that the toast I smell is not at all because my sweet and caring husband is making me breakfast in bed. I immediately want to cry again, so I force myself off the bed. I focus on the hollowness in my stomach as I use the bathroom and tell myself I can cry after I eat something. I need to eat before I make myself sick again. When I walk out of the bathroom and back into the bedroom, I notice the chair has been turned so that it's facing the bed now instead of the door. There is a blanket thrown over it haphazardly, and it's obvious Atlas was in here last night while I slept. He was probably worried I had a concussion. When I walk into the kitchen, Atlas is moving back and forth between the fridge, the stove, the counter. For the first time in 12 hours, I feel an inkling of something that isn't agony, because I remember he's a chef, a good one, and he is cooking me breakfast. He glances up at me as I make my way into the kitchen. "Morning," he says, careful to say it without too much inflection. "I hope you are hungry." He slides a glass and a container of orange juice across the counter toward me. Then he turns and faces the stove again. "I am." He glances back over his shoulder and gives me a ghost of a smile. I pour myself a glass of orange juice and then walk to the other side of the kitchen where there's a breakfast nook. There is a newspaper on the table and I begin to pick it up. When I see the article about the best businesses in Boston printed across the page, my hands immediately begin to shake and I drop the paper back on the table. I close my eyes and take a slow sip of the orange juice. A few minutes later, Atlas sets a plate down in front of me, then claims a seat across from me at the table. He pulls his own plate of food in front of him and cuts into a crepe with his fork. I look down at my plate. 3 crepes drizzled in syrup and garnished with a dab of whipped cream. Orange and strawberry slices line the right side of the plate. It's almost too pretty to eat, but I'm too hungry to care. I take a bite and close my eyes, trying not to make it obvious that it's the best bite of breakfast I've ever had. I finally allow myself to admit that his restaurant deserved that award. As much as I tried to talk Ryle and Elisa out of going back, it was the best restaurant I had ever been to. "Where did you learn to cook?" I ask him. He sips from a cup of coffee. "The Marines," he says, placing the cup back down. "I trained for a while during my first stint, and then when I re-enlisted, I came on as a chef." He taps his fork against the side of his plate. "You like it?" I nod. "It's delicious." "But you are wrong. You knew how to cook before you enlisted." He smiles. "You remember the cookies?" I nod again. "Best cookies I've ever eaten." He leans back in his chair. "I taught myself the basics. My mother worked second shift when I was growing up, so if I wanted dinner at night, I had to make it. It was either that or starve. So I bought a cookbook at a yard sale and made every single recipe in it over the course of a year, and I was only 13. I smile, shocked that I'm even able to. The next time someone asks you how you learned to cook, you should tell them that story, not the other one. He shakes his head. You are the only person who knows anything about me before the age of 19. I would like to keep it that way. He begins telling me about working as a chef in the military, how he saved up as much money as he could so that when he got out, he could open his own restaurant. He started with a small cafe that did really well, then opened Bibs a year and a half ago. It does okay, he says with modesty. I glance around his kitchen and then look back at him. Looks like it does more than just okay. He shrugs and takes another bite of his food. I don't talk after that as we finish eating because my mind wanders to his restaurant, the name of it, what he said in the interview. Then, of course, those thoughts lead me back to thoughts of Ryle and the anger in his voice as he yelled the last line on the interview at me. I think Atlas can see the change in my demeanor, but he says nothing as he clears the table. When he takes another seat, he chooses the chair right next to me this time. He places a reassuring hand on top of mine. I have to go in to work for a few hours, he says. I don't want you to leave. Stay here as long as you need, Lily. Just please don't go back home today. I shake my head when I hear the concern in his words. I won't. I will stay here, I tell him. I promise. Do you need anything before I go? I shake my head. I will be fine. He stands up and grabs his jacket. I will make it as quick as I can. I will be back after lunch and I will bring you something to eat, okay? I force a smile. He opens a drawer and pulls out a pen and paper. He writes something on it before he leaves. When he is gone, I stand up and walk to the counter to read what he wrote. He listed instructions for how to set the alarm. He wrote his cell phone number, even though I have it memorized. He also wrote down his work number, his home address, and his work address. At the bottom, in small print, he wrote, Just keep swimming, Lily. Dear Ellen, hi, it's me, Lily Bloom. Well, technically it's Lily Kincaid now. I know. It's been a long time since I've written to you. A really long time. After everything that happened with Atlas, I just could not bring myself to open up the journals again. I could not even bring myself to watch your show after school because it hurt to watch it alone. In fact, all thoughts of you kind of depressed me. When I thought of you, I thought of Atlas. And to be honest, I did not want to think of Atlas. So I had to cut you out of my life too. I'm sorry about that. I'm sure you did not miss me like I missed you. But sometimes the things that matter to you most are also the things that hurt you the most. And in order to get over that hurt, you have to sever all the extensions that keep you tethered to that pain. You were an extension of my pain. So I guess that's what I was doing. I was just trying to save myself a little bit of agony. I'm sure your show is as great as ever, though. I hear you still dance at the beginning of some episodes, but I've grown to appreciate that. I think that's one of the biggest signs a person has matured, knowing how to appreciate things that matter to others, even if they don't matter very much to you. I should probably catch you up on my life. My father died. I am 24 now. I got a college degree, worked in marketing for a while, and now I own my own business, a floral shop. Life goals, FTW. I also have a husband, and he is not Atlas. And I live in Boston. I know, shocker. The last time I wrote to you, I was 16. I was in a really bad place and I was so worried about Atlas. I'm not worried about Atlas anymore, but I am in a really bad place right now, more so than the last time I wrote to you. I'm sorry I don't seem to need to write to you when I'm in a good place. You tend to only get the shit end of my life, but that's what friends are for, right? I don't even know where to start. I know you don't know anything about my current life or my husband, Ryle, but there's this thing we do where one of us says naked truth, and then we are forced to be brutally honest and say what we are really thinking. So, naked truth, brace yourself. I am in love with a man who physically hurts me. Of all people, I have no idea how I let myself get to this point. There were many times growing up I wondered what was going through my mother's head in the days after my father had hurt her, how she could possibly love a man who had laid his hands on her, a man who repeatedly hit her, repeatedly promised he would never do it again, repeatedly hit her again. I hate that I can empathize with her now. I have been sitting on Atlas's couch for over 4 hours, wrestling with my feelings. I can't get a grip on them. I can't understand them. I don't know how to process them. And true to my past, I realize that maybe I need to just get them out on paper. My apologies to you, Ellen, but get ready for a whole lot of word vomit. If I had to compare this feeling to something, I would compare it to death, not just the death of anyone, the death of the one, the person who is closer to you than anyone else in the whole world, the one who, when you simply imagine their death, it makes your eyes tear up. That's what this feels like. It feels like Ryle has died. It's an astronomical amount of grief, an enormous amount of pain. It's a sense that I've lost my best friend, my lover, my husband, my lifeline. But the difference between this feeling and death is the presence of another emotion that does not necessarily follow in the event of an actual death: hatred. I am so angry at him, Ellen. Words can't express the amount of hatred I have for him. Yet, somehow, in the midst of all my hatred, there are waves of reasoning that flow through me. I start to think things like that I should not have had the magnet. I should have told him about the tattoo from the beginning. I should not have kept the journals. The reasoning is the hardest part of this. It eats at me, little by little, wearing down the strength my hatred lends to me. The reasoning forces me to imagine our future together and how there are things I could do to prevent that type of anger. I will never betray him again. I will never keep secrets from him again. I will never give him reason to react that way again. We will both just have to work harder from now on. For better, for worse, right? I know these are the things that once went through my mother's head. But the difference between the two of us is that she had more to worry about. She did not have the financial stability that I have. She did not have the resources to leave and give me what she thought was a decent shelter. She did not want to take me away from my father when I was used to living with both parents. I have a feeling reasoning really kicked her ass a time or two. I can't even begin to process the thought that I'm having a child with this man. There is a human being inside of me that we created together. And no matter which option I choose, whether I choose to stay or choose to leave, neither are choices I would wish upon my child to grow up in a broken home or an abusive one. I've already failed this baby in life, and I've only known about his or her existence for a single day. Ellen, I wish you could write back to me. I wish that you could say something funny to me right now, because my heart needs it. I have never felt this alone, this broken, this angry, this hurt. People on the outside of situations like these often wonder why the woman goes back to the abuser. I read somewhere once that 85% of women return to abusive situations. That was before I realized I was in one. And when I heard that statistic, I thought it was because the women were stupid. I thought it was because they were weak. I thought these things about my own mother more than once. But sometimes the reason women go back is simply because they are in love. I love my husband, Ellen. I love so many things about him. I wish cutting my feelings off for the person who hurt me was as easy as I used to think it would be. Preventing your heart from forgiving someone you love is actually a hell of a lot harder than simply forgiving them. I am a statistic now. The things I've thought about women like me are now what others would think of me if they knew my current situation. How could she love him after what he did to her? How could she contemplate taking him back? It's sad that those are the first thoughts that run through our minds when someone is abused. Shouldn't there be more distaste in our mouths for the abusers than for those who continue to love the abusers? I think of all the people who have been in this situation before me, everyone who will be in this situation after me. Do we all repeat the same words in our heads in the days after experiencing abuse at the hands of those who love us? From this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and health, until death do us part. Maybe those woes weren't meant to be taken as literally as some spouses take them. For better, for worse, F. That shit. Lily. Chapter 26. I'm lying on Atlas's guest bed, staring up at the ceiling. It's a normal bed, really comfortable actually, but it feels like I'm on a waterbed, or maybe a raft adrift at sea, and I scale over these huge waves, each of them carrying something different. Some are waves of sadness, some are waves of anger, some are waves of tears, some are waves of sleep. Occasionally, I will place my hands on my stomach, and a tiny wave of love will come. I have no idea how I can already love something so much, but I do. I think about whether or not it will be a boy or a girl and what I will name it. I wonder if it will look like me or Ryle, and then another wave of anger will come and crash down on that tiny wave of love. I feel robbed of the joy a mother should have when she finds out she's pregnant. I feel like Ryle took that from me last night, and it's just one more thing I have to hate him for. Hatred is exhausting. I force myself off the bed and into the shower. I've been in my room most of the day. Atlas returned home several hours ago, and I heard him open the door at one point to check on me, but I pretended to be asleep. I feel awkward being here. Atlas is the very reason Ryle was angry at me last night. Yet he's the one I ran to when I needed help. Being here fills me with guilt, maybe even a little bit of shame, as though my calling Atlas lends credibility to Ryle's anger. but there's literally nowhere I can go right now. I need a couple of days to process things, and if I go to a hotel, Ryle could track the credit card charge and find me. He would be able to find me at my mother's, at Elisa's, at Lucy's. He's even met Devon a couple of times and would more than likely go there too. I can't see him tracking down Atlas though. Yet, I'm sure if I go a week avoiding his calls and texts, he will look everywhere he can possibly look to find me. But for now, I don't think he would show up here. Maybe that's why I'm here. I feel safer here than anywhere else I could possibly go. And Atlas has an alarm system, so there's that. I glance at the nightstand to look at my phone. I skip over all the mixed text from Ryle and open the one from Elisa. Hey, Aunt Lily. They're sending us home tonight. Come see us tomorrow when you get home from work. She sent a picture of her and Riley, and it makes me smile, then cry. Damn, these emotions. I wait until my eyes are dry again before I walk into the living room. Atlas is sitting at his kitchen table, working on his laptop. When he looks up at me, he smiles and closes it. Hey. I force a smile and then look in the kitchen. Do you have anything to eat? Atlas stands up quickly. Yeah, he says. Yeah, sit down. I'll get something ready for you. I take a seat on the couch as he works his way around the kitchen. The television is on, but it's muted. I unmute it and click on the DVR. He has a few shows recorded, but the one that catches my eye is the Ellen DeGeneres show. I smile and click on the most recent unwatched episode and hit play. Atlas brings me a bowl of pasta and a glass of ice water. He glances at the TV and then sits down next to me on the couch. For the next 3 hours, we watch a full week's worth of episodes. I laugh out loud 6 times. It feels good. But when I take a bathroom break and come back to the living room, the weight of it all starts to sink in again. I sit back down on the couch next to Atlas. He's leaning back with his feet propped up on the coffee table. I naturally lean onto him, and just like he used to do when we were teenagers, he pulls me against his chest, and we just sit there in silence. His thumb brushes the outside of my shoulder, and I know it's his unspoken way of saying he's here for me, that he feels bad for me. And for the first time since he picked me up last night, I feel like talking about it. My head is resting against his shoulder and my hands are in my lap. I'm fidgeting with the drawstrings on the pants that are way too big for me. Atlas, I say, my voice barely a whisper. I'm sorry I got so angry at you that night at the restaurant. You were right. Deep down, I knew you were right, but I did not want to believe it. I lift my head and look at him, cracking a pitiful smile. You can say I told you so now. His eyebrows draw together, like my words somehow hurt him. Lily, this is not something I wanted to be right about. I prayed every day that I was wrong about him. I wince. I should not have said that to him. I know better than to think Atlas would ever think something like I told you so. He squeezes my shoulder and leans forward, kissing the top of my head. I close my eyes as I soak up the familiarity of him, his smell, his touch, his comfort. I have never understood how someone can be so rock solid yet comforting, but that's always how I have viewed him. Like he could withstand anything but somehow still feels the weight that everyone else carries. I don't like that I was never fully able to let go of him, no matter how hard I tried. I think about the fight with Ryle over Atlas's phone number, the fight about the magnet, the article, the things he read in my journal, the tattoo, None of that would have happened if I would have just let go of Atlas and thrown it all away. Ryle would not have had anything to be so upset with me about. I pull my hands up to my face after that thought, upset that there's a part of me trying to blame Ryle's reaction on my lack of closure with Atlas. There's no excuse, none. This is just another wave I'm being forced to ride on, a wave of complete and utter confusion. Atlas can feel the change in my composure. You okay? I'm not. I'm not okay because until this moment I had no idea how hurt I still am that he never came back for me. If he would have just come back for me like he promised, I would have never even met Ryle, and I would have never been in this situation. Yep, I'm definitely confused. How am I possibly lending blame to Atlas for any of this? I think I need to call it a night, I say quietly, pulling away from him. I stand up, and Atlas stands up too. I will be gone most of the day tomorrow, he says. Will you be here when I get home? I cringe at his question. Of course, he wants me to get my shit together and find another place to stay. What am I even still doing here? No, I can get a hotel, it's fine. I turn to walk toward the hallway, but he puts a hand on my shoulder. Lily, he was turning me around. I wasn't asking you to leave. I was just making sure you would still be here. I want you to stay as long as you need to. His eyes are sincere, and if I did not think it would be a little inappropriate, I would throw my arms around him and hug him, because I'm not ready to leave yet. Just a couple more days before I'm forced to figure out what my next step is. I nod. I need to go into work for a few hours tomorrow, I tell him. There are some things I need to take care of, but if you really don't mind, I would like to stay here for a few more days. I don't mind, Lily. I would prefer it. I force a smile and then head to the guest bedroom. At least he's giving me a buffer before I'm forced to confront everything. As much as his presence in my life confuses me right now, I have never been more thankful for him. Chapter 27. My hand is trembling when I reach for the doorknob. I've never once been scared to walk into my own business before, but I've also never been this on edge. The building is dark when I enter it, so I flip on the lights, holding my breath. I walk slowly to my office, pushing the door open with caution. He's nowhere yet. He's everywhere. When I take a seat at my desk, I turn on my phone for the first time since I went to bed last night. I wanted a good night's sleep without having to worry about whether or not Ryle was trying to contact me. When it powers on, I have 29 missed texts from Ryle. It just so happens to be the same number of doors Ryle knocked on to find my apartment last year. I don't know whether to laugh or cry at the irony. I spend the rest of the day like this, glancing over my shoulder, looking up at the door every time it opens. I wonder if he's ruined me, if the fear of him will ever leave me. Half a day goes by without a single phone call from him while I catch up on paperwork. Elisa calls me after lunch, and I can tell by her voice that she has no idea about the fight Ryle and I had. I let her talk about the baby for a while before I pretend I have a customer and hang up. I plan on leaving when Lucy returns from her lunch break. She has half an hour left. Ryle walks through the front door 3 minutes later. I'm the only one here. As soon as I see him, I turn stone cold. I'm standing behind the counter, my hand on the cash register because it's close to the stapler. I'm sure a stapler could not do much harm against the arms of a neurosurgeon, but I will use what I have. He slowly makes his way to the counter. It's the first time I've seen him since he was on top of me on our bed the other night. My whole body is immediately taken back to that moment, and I'm engulfed in the same level of emotions as I was in that moment. Both fear and anger rush through me when he reaches the counter. He lifts his hand and places a set of keys on the counter in front of me. My eyes fall to the keys. I'm leaving for England tonight, he says. I will be gone for 3 months. I paid all the bills so you won't have to worry about it while I'm gone. His voice is composed, but I can see the veins in his neck as they prove his composure is taking all the effort he has. You need time, he swallows hard, and I want to give that to you. He grimaces and pushes the keys to my apartment toward me. Go back home, Lily. I won't be there, I promise. He turns and begins walking toward the door. It occurs to me that he did not even try to apologize. I'm not angry about it. I understand it. He knows that an apology will never take back what he did. He knows that the best thing for us right now is separation. He knows what a huge mistake he made, yet I still feel the need to dig that knife in a little deeper. Rel? He looks back at me, and it's as if he puts a shield up between us. He does not turn all the way around, and he's stiff as he waits for whatever I'm about to say. He knows my words are going to hurt him. You know what the worst part about this whole thing is? I ask. He doesn't say anything. He just stares at me, waiting for my answer. All you had to do when you found my journal was ask me for a naked truth. I would have been honest with you, but you did not. You chose to not ask for my help, and now we will both have to suffer the consequences of your actions for the rest of our lives. He grimaces with every word. Lily, he says, turning toward me. I hold up my hand to stop him from saying anything else. Don't. You can leave now. Have fun in England. I can see the war raging inside of him. He knows he can't get anywhere with me in this moment. No matter how hard he wants to beg for my forgiveness, he knows the only choice he has is to turn and walk out that door, even though it's the last thing he wants to do. When he finally forces himself out the door, I run and lock it. I slide down the floor and hug my knees, burying my face against them. I'm shaking so hard I can feel my teeth chatter. I can't believe part of that man is growing inside me, and I can't believe I will one day have to admit that to him. Chapter 28. After Ryle left me his keys this afternoon, I debated going back to our new apartment. I even had a cab pull up to the building, but I could not force myself out of the car. I knew if I went back there today, I would probably see Elisa at some point. I'm not ready to explain the stitches on my forehead to her. I'm not ready to see the kitchen where Ryle's harsh words cut through me. I'm not ready to walk into the bedroom where I was completely destroyed. So instead of returning to my own home, I took the cab back to Atlas's house. It feels like my only safe zone right now. I don't have to confront things when I'm hiding out here. Atlas has already texted me twice today, checking on me. So when I get a text a few minutes before 7 o'clock in the evening, I assume it's from him. It's not. It's from Elisa. Elisa, You home from work yet? Come up and visit us. I'm already bored. My heart sinks when I read her text. She has no idea what happened between me and Ryle. I wonder if Ryle even told her he left for England today. My thumb types and erases and types some more as I try to come up with a good excuse as to why I'm not there. Me. I can't. I'm in the emergency room, hit my head on that shelf in the storage room at work, getting stitches. I hate that I lied to her, but it will save me from having to explain the cut and also why I'm not home right now. Elisa. Oh no. Are you alone? Marshall can come sit with you, since Ryle is gone. Okay, so she knows Ryle left for England. That's good. And she thinks we are fine. This is good. That means I have at least 3 months before I have to tell her the truth. Look at me, sweeping shit under the rug, just like my mother. Me. No, I'm fine. I will be finished up by the time Marshall could even get here. I will come by tomorrow after work. Give Riley a kiss for me. I locked the screen on my phone and set it on my bed. It's dark outside now, so I immediately see the scroll of the headlights as someone pulls into the driveway. I instantly know that it isn't Atlas because he uses the driveway to the side of the house and parks in the garage. My heart begins to race as fear rushes through me. Is it Ryle? Did he find out where Atlas lives? Moments later, there is a loud knock at the front door, more like pounding. The doorbell also rings. I tiptoe to the window and barely move the curtains over far enough to take a look outside. I can't see who's at the door, but there's a truck in the driveway. It does not belong to Ryle. Could it be Atlas's girlfriend, Cassie? I grab my phone and make my way down the hallway toward the living room. The pounding on the door and the chime of the doorbell are still going off simultaneously. Whoever is at the door is being ridiculously impatient. If it is Cassie, I already find her extremely annoying. Atlas, a guy yells, open the damn door. Another voice, also male, yells, my paws are freezing up. The raisins, man. Open the door. Before I open the door and let them know Atlas isn't home, I text him, hoping he's about to pull in the driveway and deal with this himself. Me. Where are you? There are 2 men at your front door and I have no idea if I should let them in. I wait through more presses of the doorbell and more pounding. But Atlas does not immediately text me back. I finally walk to the door and leave the chain bolted, but unlock the deadbolt and open the door a few inches. One of the guys is tall, about 6 feet or so. Despite the youthful look to his face, his hair is salt and pepper, black with a little bit of gray sprinkled in. The other one is shorter by a few inches, with sandy brown hair and a baby face. They both look to be in their late 20s, maybe early 30s. The tall one's face twists into confusion. Who are you? He asks, peeking through the door. Lily, who are you? The shorter one pushes in front of the taller one. Is Atlas here? I don't want to tell them no, because then they will know I am here alone. I don't necessarily hold much trust in the male population this week. The phone in my hand rings and all three of us jump from the unexpectedness of it. It's Atlas. I swipe the answer button and bring it to my ear. Hello? It's fine, Lily. They are just friends of mine. I forgot it was Friday. We always play poker on Fridays. I will call them now and tell them to leave. I look back at the two of them, and they are just standing there watching me. I feel bad that Atlas feels like he has to cancel his plans just because I'm crashing at the house. I shut the door and unlock the deadbolt, then open the door again, motioning them inside. It's fine, Atlas. You don't have to cancel your plans. I was about to go to bed anyway.
No, I'm on my way. I will have them leave.
I still have the phone pressed to my ear when the two men enter the living room. See you soon, I say to Atlas, and then end the call. The next few seconds are awkward as the guys assess me and I assess them. What are your names?
I am Darren,
The one tall one says.
Brad.
The shorter one says. Lily, I say to them, even though I already told them my name. Atlas will be here soon. I move to close the door and they seem to relax a little. Darren heads into the kitchen and helps himself to Atlas's refrigerator. Brad takes off his jacket and hangs it up.
Do you know how to play poker, Lily?
I shrug. It's been a few years, but I used to play with friends in college. Both of them walk toward the dining room table.
What happened to your head?
Asks as he Darren asks as he takes a seat. He asks it so casually, like it does not even cross his mind that it might be a sensitive subject. I don't know why I have an urge to give them the naked truth. Maybe I just want to see how someone will react when they find out my own husband did this to me. My husband happened. We got into a fight 2 nights ago, and he headbutted me. Atlas took me to the emergency room. They gave me 6 stitches and told me I was pregnant. Now I am hiding out here until I figure out what to do. Poor Darren is frozen, halfway between standing and sitting. He has no idea how to respond to that. Based on the look on his face, I think he's convinced I'm crazy. Brad pulls out his chair and takes a seat, pointing at me.
You should get some Rodin and Feels. The Amproller works wonders for scarring.
I immediately laugh at his random response. Somehow,
Jesus, Brad,
Darren says, finally sinking into his seat.
You're worse than your wife with this direct sale shit. You are like a walking infomercial.
Brad raises his hands in defense.
What?
He says innocently.
I'm not trying to sell her anything. I'm being honest. The stuff works. You would know that if you'd use it on your damn acne.
Screw you, Darren says.
It's like you're trying to be a perpetual teenager,
Brad mutters.
Acne is not cool when you're 30.
Brad pulls out the chair next to him, while Darren begins shuffling a deck of cards.
Have a seat, Lily.
One of our friends
Decided to be an idiot and get married last week, and now his wife won't let him come to poker night anymore. You can be his fill-in until he gets a divorce.
I had every intention of hiding out in my room tonight, but these two make it hard to walk away. I take a seat next to Brad and reach across the table. Hand me those, I say to Darren. He is shuffling the cards like a one-armed infant. He raises an eyebrow and pushes the deck of cards across the table. I don't know much about card games, but I can shuffle cards like a pro. I separate the cards into 2 piles and scoot them together, pressing my thumbs to the ends, watching as they beautifully intertwine. Darren and Brad are staring at the deck of cards when there's another knock on the door. This time the door swings open without pause and a guy walks in dressed in what looks like a very expensive tweed jacket. There is a scarf wrapped around his neck, and he begins to unwind it as soon as he slams the door behind him. He nudges his head in my direction as he walks toward the kitchen.
Who are you?
He's older than the other two, probably in his mid-40s. Atlas definitely has an interesting mix of friends.
This is Lily, Brad says. She's married to an a-hole and just found out she's pregnant with the a-hole's baby. Lily, this is Jimmy. He's pompous and arrogant. Pompous and arrogant are the same thing, idiot,
Jimmy says. He pulls out the chair next to Darren and nudges his head at the cards in my hands.
Did Atlas plant you here to hustle us? What kind of average person knows how to shuffle cards like that? I smile and begin to pass cards out to each of them. I guess we will have to play a round to find out. We are on our third round of bets when Atlas finally walks in. He closes the door behind him and looks around at the four of us. Brad said something funny right before Atlas opened the door, so I'm in the middle of a fit of laughter when Atlas locks eyes with me. He nods his head toward the kitchen and begins walking in that direction. Fold, I say, laying my cards flat on the table as I stand up to follow him. When I get to the kitchen, he is standing where he isn't visible to the guys at the table. I walk over to him and lean against the counter. You want me to ask them to leave? I shake my head. No, don't do that. I'm actually enjoying it. It's keeping my mind off things. He nods, and I can't help but notice how he smells like herbs, rosemary specifically. He makes me wish I could see him in action at his restaurant. You hungry? He asks. I shake my head. Not really. I ate some leftover pasta a couple hours ago. My hands are pressed into the counter on either side of me. He takes a step closer and puts one of his hands over mine, brushing his thumb across the top of it. I know he doesn't mean for it to be anything more than a comforting gesture, but when he touches me, it feels like a whole lot more. A rush of warmth moves up my chest, and I immediately drop my eyes to our hands. Atlas pauses his thumb for a second, like he feels it too. He pulls his hand away and backs up a step. Sorry, he mutters, turning toward the refrigerator, pretending to look for something. It's obvious he's trying to spare me from the awkwardness of what just happened. I walk back to the table and pick up my cards for the next round. A couple of minutes later, Atlas walks over and takes the seat next to me. Jimmy shuffles out a round of new cards to everyone. So, Atlas, how do you and Lily know each other? Atlas picks up his cards, one at a time. Lily saved my life when we were kids, he says, matter of fact. He glances over at me and winks, and I drown in guilt for the way that wink makes me feel, especially at a time like this. Why is my heart doing this to me? Oh, that's sweet, Brad says. Lily saved your life, now you're saving hers. Atlas lowers his cards and glares at Brad. Excuse me? Relax, Brad says. Me and Lily are tight. She knows I'm kidding. Brad looks at me. Your life might be complete crap right now, Lily, but it will get better. Trust me. I have been there. Darren laughs. You have been beat up and pregnant and hiding out at another man's house? He says to Brad. Atlas slaps his cards on the table and pushes back in his chair. What the hell is wrong with you? He yells at Darren. I reach over and squeeze his arm reassuringly. Relax, I say. We bonded before you got here. I actually don't mind that they are making light of my situation. It really does make it a little less heavy. He runs a frustrated hand through his hair, shaking his head. I am so confused, he says. You were alone with them for 10 minutes. I laugh. You can learn a lot about someone in 10 minutes. I try to redirect the conversation. So how do you all know each other? Darren leans forward and points at himself. I am the sous chef at Bibbs. He points at Brad. He is the dishwasher. For now, Brad interjects, I'm working my way up. What about you? I say to Jimmy. He smirks and says, Take a guess. Based on the way he dresses and the fact that he's been called arrogant and pompous, I would have to assume Maitre d'? Atlas laughs. Jimmy actually works in valet. I glance back at Jimmy and raise an eyebrow. He tosses 3 poker chips down and says, It's true. I park cars for tips. Don't let him fool you. Atlas says. He works in Valley, but only because he is so rich he gets bored. I smile. It reminds me of Elisa. I have an employee like that. Only works because she is bored. She is actually the best employee I have. Damn straight, Jimmy mutters. I take a look at my cards when it's my turn and toss in the 3 poker chips. Atlas's phone rings and he pulls it out of his pocket. I'm raising the pot with another chip when he excuses himself from the table to take the call. Fold, Brad says, slapping his cards on the table. I'm watching the hallway Atlas just disappeared down in a hurry. It makes me wonder if he's talking to Cassie or if there's someone else in his life. I know what he does for a living. I know he has at least 3 friends. I just know nothing about his love life. Darren lays his cards on the table, 4 of a kind. I lay down my straight flush and reach forward for all the poker chips as Darren groans. So does Casey not usually come to poker night? I ask, fishing for more information on Atlas. Information I'm too scared to ask him myself. Casey? Brad says. I stack my winnings up in front of me and nod. Isn't that his girlfriend's name? Darren laughs. Atlas does not have a girlfriend. I have known him for 2 years and he's never mentioned anyone named Casey. He begins passing out new cards, but I'm trying to absorb the information he just gave me. I pick up my first 2 cards when Atlas walks back into the room. Hey Atlas, Jimmy says. Who the hell is Casey? And how come we have never heard you talk about her? Oh shit. I'm completely mortified. I tighten my grip around the cards in my hands and try to avoid looking up at Atlas, but the room grows so quiet it would be more obvious if I did not look at him. He's staring at Jimmy, Jimmy is staring at him, Brad and Darren are staring at me. Atlas folds his lips together for a moment and then says, There is no Casey. His eyes meet mine, but only for a brief second. But in that brief second, I can see it written all over his face. There never was a Casey. He lied to me. Atlas clears his throat and then says, Listen, guys, I should have cancelled tonight. This week has been kinda. He rubs his hand over his mouth and Jimmy stands up. He squeezes Atlas on the shoulder and says, Next week, my place. Atlas nods appreciatively. The 3 of them begin to gather their cards and poker chips. Brad pries my cards from my fingers apologetically because I'm unable to move as I clutch them tightly. It was lovely meeting you, Lily, Brad says. I somehow find the strength to smile and stand up. I give them all hugs, goodbye, and after the front door closes behind them, it's just me and Atlas in the room. And no Casey. Casey's never even been in this room because Casey does not exist. What the hell? Atlas has not moved from his spot near the table. Neither have I. He's standing firm with his arms folded across his chest. His head is slightly tilted down, but his eyes are boring into me from across the table. Why would he lie to me? Ryle and I were not even an official couple yet when I ran into Atlas at the restaurant the first time. Hell, if Atlas had given me any reason to believe there was a chance between us that night, I know without a doubt that I would have chosen him over Ryle. I barely even knew Ryle at that point. But Atlas did not say anything. He lied to me and told me he had been in a relationship for an entire year. Why? Why would he do that unless he did not want me to think I had a chance with him?
Maybe I've been wrong all this time. Maybe he never even loved me to begin with, and he knew that inventing this Cassie person would keep me away from him for good. Yet, here I am, crashing at his house, interacting with his friends, eating his food, using his shower. I can feel the tears begin to sting my eyes, and the last thing I want is to stand in front of him and cry right now. I walk around the table and rush past him. I don't make it far when he grabs my hand. Wait, I stop, still facing the other direction. Talk to me, Lily. He is right behind me now, his hand still wrapped around mine. I pull it away from him and walk to the other side of the living room. I spin and face him just as the first tear rolls down my cheek. Why did you never come back for me? He looked prepared for anything to come out of my mouth other than the words I just spoke to him. He runs a hand through his hair and walks to the couch, taking a seat. After blowing out a calming breath, he carefully looks over at me. I did, Lily. I don't allow air to move in or out of my lungs. I stand completely still, processing his answer. He came back for me? He folds his hands together in front of him. When I got out of the Marines the first time, I went back to Maine, hoping to find you. I asked around and found out which college you went to. I wasn't sure what to expect when I showed up, because we were two different people by then. It had been 4 years since we saw each other. I knew a lot about both of us had probably changed in those 4 years. My nails feel weak, so I walk to the chair next to him and lower myself. He came back for me. I walked around your campus the whole day looking for you. Finally, late that afternoon, I saw you. You were sitting in the courtyard with a group of your friends. I watched you for a long time, trying to work up the courage to walk over to you. You were laughing. You looked happy. You were vibrant like I had never seen you before. I had never felt that kind of happiness for another person like I felt when I saw you that day, just knowing you were okay. He pauses for a moment. My hands are clenched around my stomach because it hurts. It hurts knowing I was so close to him and I did not even know. I began walking toward you when someone came up behind you, a guy. He dropped to his knees next to you, and when you saw him, you smiled and threw your arms around him. Then you kissed him. I closed my eyes. He was just a boy I had dated for 6 months. He never even made me feel a fraction of what I felt for Atlas. He blows out a sharp breath. I left after that. When I saw that you were happy, it was the worst and best feeling a person could ever have at once. But I believed at that point that my life was still not good enough for you. I had nothing to offer you but love, and to me you deserved more than that. The next day I signed up for another tour in the Marines, and now he tosses his hand up lazily in the air, like nothing about his life is impressive. I bury my head in my hands to take a moment. I quietly grieve what could have been, what is, what wasn't. My fingers move to the tattoo on my shoulder. I begin to wonder if I will ever be able to fill in that hole now. It makes me wonder if Atlas ever feels like I felt when I got this tattoo, like all the air is being let out of his heart. I still don't understand why he lied to me after running into me at his restaurant. If he really felt the things I felt for him, why would he make something like that up? Why did you lie about having a girlfriend? He rubs a hand over his face, and I can already see the regret before I even hear it in his voice. I said that because you looked happy that night. When I saw you telling him goodbye, it hurt like hell. But at the same time,
I was relieved that you seemed to be in a really good place. I did not want you to worry about me, and I don't know. Maybe I was a little jealous. I don't know, Lily. I regretted lying to you as soon as I did it. My hand goes to my mouth. My mind starts to race just as fast as my heart is racing. I instantly start thinking about the what ifs. What if he would have been honest with me, told me how he had felt? Where would we be now? I want to ask him why he did it, why he did not fight for me, but I don't have to ask him because I already know the answer. He thought he was giving me what I wanted because all he's ever wanted for me was happiness. And for some stupid reason, he's never felt I could get that with him. Consider it, Atlas. The more I think about it, the more difficult it becomes to breathe. I think about Atlas, Ryle, tonight, 2 nights ago. It's too much. I stand up and make my way back to the guest room. I pick up my phone and grab my purse and go back to the living room. Atlas hasn't moved. Ryle left for England today, I say. I think I should probably go home now. Can you drive me? A sadness enters his eyes, and when it does, I know that leaving is the right thing to do. Neither of us has closure. I'm not sure we will ever get it. I'm beginning to think closure is a myth. And being here right now, while I'm still processing everything that's happening to my life, is just going to make things worse for me. I have to eliminate as much confusion as possible, and right now, my feelings for Atlas top the list of most confusing. He presses his lips tightly together for a moment, and then he nods and grabs his keys. Neither of us speaks the entire drive to my apartment. He doesn't drop me off. He pulls into the parking lot and gets out of his car. I would feel better if you let me walk you up, he says. I nod and we wade through even more silence as we ride the elevator up to the 7th floor. He follows me all the way to my apartment. I fish around in my purse for the keys and don't even realize my hands are shaking until my third failed attempt to open the door. Atlas calmly takes the keys from me and I step aside as he opens the door for me. Do you want me to make sure no one's here? He asks. I nod. I know Ryle isn't here because he's on his way to England, but I'm honestly still a little scared to walk into the apartment by myself. Atlas walks in before me and flips on the light. He continues walking through the apartment, flipping on all the lights and walking into each of the rooms. When he makes it back to the living room, he slides his hands in his jacket pockets. He takes a deep breath and then says, I don't know what happens next, Lily. He does. He knows. He just does not want it to happen because we both know how much it hurts to say goodbye to each other. I look away from him because seeing the look on his face right now cuts straight to my heart. I fold my arms over my chest and stare at the floor. I have a lot to work through, Atlas. A lot. And I'm scared I won't be able to do it with you in my life. I lift my eyes back to his. I hope you don't take offense to that because, if anything, it's a compliment. He regards me silently for a moment, not at all surprised by what I'm saying, but I can see there is so much he wants to say. There's a lot I wish I could say to him, too. But we both know discussing the two of us isn't appropriate at this point. I am married, I'm pregnant with another man's baby, and he's standing in the living room of an apartment that another man bought for me. I would say these aren't very good conditions in which
to bring up all the things we should have said to each other a long time ago. He looks at the door momentarily as if he's trying to decide to leave or speak. I can see the twitch in his jaw right before he locks eyes with me. "If you ever need me, I want you to call me," he says, "but only if it's an emergency." "I'm not capable of being casual with you, Lily." I'm taken aback by his words, but only momentarily. As much as I wasn't expecting him to admit it, he's absolutely right. Since the day we met, there has been nothing casual about our relationship. It's either all in or not in at all. That's why he separated ties when he left for the military. He knew that a casual friendship would never work between us. It would have been too painful. Apparently, that hasn't changed. Goodbye, Atlas. Saying those words again tears me up almost as much as the first time I had to say them. He winces and then turns and walks to the door, like he can't leave fast enough. When the door closes behind him, I walk over and lock it, then press my head against it. 2 days ago, I was asking myself how my life could possibly get any better. Today, I'm asking myself how it could possibly get any worse. I jump back with the sudden knock at the door. It's only been 10 seconds he walked out, so I know it's Atlas. I know. I unlock it and open it, and I'm suddenly pressed against something soft. Atlas's arms wrap tightly around me, desperately, and his lips are pressed against the side of my head. I squeeze my eyes shut and finally let the tears fall. I have cried so many tears for Ryle over the past 2 days. I have no idea how I still have any left for Atlas, but I do, because they are falling down my cheeks like rain. "Lily," he whispers, still holding me tightly. "I know this is the last thing you need to hear right now, but I have to say it because I walked away from you too many times without saying what I really want to say." He pulls back to look down at me, and when he sees my tears, he brings his hands up to my cheeks. "In the future, if by some miracle you ever find yourself in the position to fall in love again, fall in love with me." He presses his lips against my forehead. "You are still my favorite person, Lily. Always will be." He releases me and walks away, not even needing a response. When I close the door again, I slide to the floor. My heart feels like it wants to give up. I don't blame it. It suffered through 2 separate heartaches in the course of 2 days. And I have a feeling it's going to be a long time before either of those heartaches can even begin to heal. To be continued. Thank you for listening so far, and if you haven't liked this video yet, please give it a like, and if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe and hit the bell notification to be notified first whenever I upload next. Thank you so much for listening and for supporting this channel.